Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Um, Thank you very much indeed, Father Tom, for the opportunity to join you on this wonderful virtual pilgrimage. What a wonderful family you have on this pilgrimage. I've been on every single week, apart from one, which I couldn't make. It's 2 years since I've been to the Holy Land in November 19, and I feel I've been back there every Monday evening. With those terrific images that everyone has put together. And for brevity tonight, I'm going to not try to compete with those. So you're not going to see any images because, frankly, we've seen such wonderful ones already. But I would like to connect you all with the Holy Land today and the Living Stones. Just give you a little bit of an update on the situation over there, particularly for Christian brothers and sisters. So let me just give you a brief introduction to Friends of the Holy Land for those of you who may not be aware of it. First of all, you will see on the top left there the Crusader Cross, or the Jerusalem Cross, which probably gives you a hint that the Friends of the Holy Land was formed out of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. The Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, with their brief to support the Latin Patriarchate, the institution of the Catholic Church in the Holy Land, it was felt that there should be an organization which was helping the Christians not just from the top down, but from the bottom up. And so our history began in 2007 when the now Cardinal, Vincent Nichols, was the Archbishop of Birmingham, led a pilgrimage to the Holy Land and came back and said to the organizer of that pilgrimage, Michael Whelan, who was the lieutenant of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, we've got to do something to help these Christians over there. We've got to do something different to what the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre are doing. And so 2 years later, the Friends of the Holy Land was formed as a grassroots organization with groups initially across England and Wales, initially a Catholic charity to make people aware of the situation over there for our Christian brothers and sisters, and more of that in a moment. So our mission is very much to try to preserve the Christian presence in the Holy Land and to identify the most needy Christians over there, to support them and to encourage them to stay and not emigrate. 100 years ago, the number of Christians in the Holy Land was 25%. It is now 2%. So our objectives are very simple, to raise that awareness, to pray for them, to offer them practical support, and to encourage people to go on pilgrimage. We are not political. We help Christians, whether they be in Palestine or whether they be in Israel. And we are now ecumenical, because in 2012, one of those fates that happens, it was that Archbishop Rowan Williams had just been on pilgrimage to the Holy Land. He came back. He wanted to start a fundraising scheme to help the Christians over there. And he happened to be talking to the Cardinal. Cardinal mentioned Friends of the Holy Land, and they thought what a wonderful ecumenical opportunity this would be. Christians of any denomination over here, helping Christians of any denomination over there. So where do we work? Well, we're working fundamentally in the West Bank and Gaza, East Jerusalem, Palestine that is, and then we're working in Israel, predominantly in Nazareth, but also in Jaffa, and then in Jordan. So what do? Well, we are trying to help with both sustainable and emergency help. So as well as giving people fish, teaching them how to fish. And we do that with employment projects, in helping with education, health, housing, and a family support program. How do we do it? Well, in the UK, we have a huge amount of support and have had from the beginning from many bishops, not least Bishop Philip, who you will soon be hearing is once again going to be encouraging parish priests to choose and select Friends of the Holy Land as the beneficiary of crib offerings again this year. And we have about 10 other dioceses who do that. And we are, of course, working across the ecumenical world, not just with Anglicans, but with Methodists and URC as well, but predominantly Catholic and Anglican. We have groups around the country. Most successful group is in Jersey, affiliated to Portsmouth, of course. And they alone raise about £30,000 a year for us. Wonderful, wonderful work they do. So in the UK, we've got an office in Kenilworth here in Warwickshire, where I live. We have got obviously trustees, we've got a management committee, mixture of Anglicans and Catholics. We have a chief executive, but we have a very small staff. We have a very small operation in relation to the amount of income that we raise. In the Holy Land, we are the only UK charity that's actually got its own office in the Holy Land, would you believe? We have an office in Bethlehem. We have staff in Bethlehem, just 2 part-time, and we have a wonderful volunteer committee made up of both lay and clergy. Our response, I will just run you through briefly our response in the various areas we work and the impact we make. In Jordan, it's the smallest area where we work, and our focus is helping the Iraqi Christian refugees. The other major refugees, Christian refugees in Jordan, are Syrians, but those from Syria, for some weird reason, are allowed work permits, whereas those from Iraq aren't. So you can imagine the impact that has on their ability to look after themselves. So we're helping them with the employment projects, which we can do within various parishes. There's a wonderful Latin parish in Oman that has set up a pizzeria, an ice cream factory. It's got a restaurant. It's got a cheese factory, and they've been able to do everything within the parish to employ some of the Iraqi Christian refugees. And we help them with their health costs and provide some training. In Israel, the situation, as you'll hear, is very different to that in Palestine, but nevertheless, they are suffering from a lot of discrimination. And in Nazareth and Jaffa, mainly in Nazareth until now, we have provided a lot of support for young people with school and university fees, with family support, and with employment initiatives. It's interesting, when a priest moves from the West Bank, Palestine, to Israel, they assume that nobody in Israel has got any problems until they get there. And then they suddenly realize that actually there are poor families that need desperate support in Israel as well. I've been privileged to go to Gaza about 5 or 6 times in the 25 visits I've made to the Holy Land since March 2010, which was my first visit. And Gaza is just like a war zone. It was the first time I went, and it has been every time. I was there with the Cardinal. There were just 6 of us there 2 months after the conflict in 2014. I haven't been back, obviously, since the 2020 conflict. But there are only 1,000 Christians out of 2 million in 2 parishes, Latin and Greek Orthodox, about 130 Latins, the rest are Greek Orthodox, but they work closely together. And we're working there very much in relation to medicine and housing. So, for example, after the conflict in May this year, or June this year, we gave $50,000 in emergency grant to repair 32 houses of the Christians within that parish. We also help them with some trauma therapy. We have an ongoing program. It's been going for nearly 2 years now to identify the 68 most chronically ill with their monthly medications. We also work through the Pontifical Mission, in relation to sorting university fees over there, and also some employment initiatives. When it comes to the wider West Bank, there again, just to give you a flavour, 2.9 population, 45,000 Christians, that's just 2%. And as you all well know from your visits and from what you have read, the restrictions of occupation are horrendous. It's only, 4 miles from Bethlehem to Jerusalem, but most in Bethlehem can't get permits to go into Jerusalem unless they're working, and there again there are great restrictions. But the average person can't get permits. Sometimes they will get them at Christmas and Easter, but even some of the clergy working at the Latin Patriarchate can't get permits to go into Jerusalem to the Latin Patriarchate themselves. And of course, the restrictions on movements across the whole of the West Bank are very significant. The economy is, I think the best way to put it is shot, because the Palestinian Authority are in a desperate financial state, and of course that impacts all the way down the line. Many of their own staff don't get paid every month, and that's the kind of government staff. Employment levels across the West Bank, unemployment levels are very high, and of course that has terrific impact on their ability to work. There's no health service in Palestine, so there's very little health insurance. There's a little bit, and you can get some private health insurance, and we're working with a number of organizations now to try to set up a national health insurance scheme. But the health situation is dire, because people have to pay for everything, and frankly, they can't afford it. The housing situation across the West Bank is really quite strange, because there are those that own their own houses, of course, that can't necessarily afford to refurbish them. But there's a lot of rented housing, but the rents are fixed. So if you rented your house in 1950, you're paying the same rent now as you were then. Well, that might sound very attractive, but the challenge is the landlord can't afford to do any refurbishments. So the damp in so many houses over there is dreadful. Getting to Bethlehem, half the Christians in the West Bank live in Bethlehem. And that's really where we started, and where our focus is, albeit we're working in villages and towns across the whole of the West Bank. And you can see there, it's about 11% are Christians in Bethlehem. And I put up those dates of March 2020 to 2022, 2023, because really, when we talk about impact at the moment in Bethlehem, it is down to the lack of tourism and the lack of pilgrimages. Bethlehem was the first town, a hotel, at the end of February last year that suffered from COVID, and it's been locked out ever since. And there have been no international pilgrimages or tourists coming into the Holy Land, therefore not into Bethlehem, since that time. And there were 3 million tourists a year going into Bethlehem, of which many, of course, were pilgrims. And now there are none. 80% of the Christians in Bethlehem were either directly or indirectly dependent upon tourism. 40% directly, 40% indirectly. So whether you're talking about people working in hotels, which have been closed, whether you're talking about guides, souvenir shops, whether you're talking about people who are taxi drivers, they have all suffered terrifically. And the challenge is that there's no furlough scheme over there. There's been no support whatsoever for any business or any individual since March 2020. So you can imagine the impact of that on their income, and indeed on their dependency on others like the Friends of the Holy Land. Education over there is divided into the government schools, which are 99.9% Muslim, and the privately run Christian schools. Excellent schools, very high standards, very well run by the Latin Patriarchate, by the Anglican Diocese of Jerusalem, whether by the Rosary Sisters or the Franciscans. Excellent schools, but they're all fee paying, and so therefore people haven't got income, so they can't afford to pay the fees. And last year, the Latin Patriarchate collected 11% of the school fees. 11%. So can you imagine the impact that's having on the institution, as well as on the families themselves? And some of them don't want to continue with debt, so they, in the worst cases, they're taking their children out of those schools and pushing them into government schools, which is an absolute disaster for the family and their faith journey. We have about 100 families who want family support, receiving the equivalent of about £100 a month, £3 a day. These are the families that are most in need. Health, we pay for hospitals, we pay for medications. And just to give you an idea, our Christmas appeal is all focused around education, and is actually focusing on some of the challenges of birthing costs. To have a straightforward birth in Bethlehem costs 1.5 months of salary. To have a C-section is 2 months, and any complications, it can be 3 months salary just to have a baby. So you can imagine the trauma that is putting families through at the moment when they have no income. Housing has gone way down the list. The refurbishment of houses is no longer a priority with the emergency situation there is at this very moment. And as for the future, well, the good news is that today, the 1st of November, Israelis officially allowed pilgrims back into the Holy Land, back in through Tel Aviv airport. And on Saturday, they are allowing them to stay overnight in the West Bank, therefore in Bethlehem. I'm planning to go over there a week on Friday for a few days, the first time for 2 years, to meet our committee, to thank them, to give them support, because they have had a terrifically bad time over the last 2 years. Fortunately, in the last 12 months, the Friends of the Holy Land were able to increase our donations somehow by nearly 60%, and our grants to the Holy Land by over 60%. And that was without any diocese activity, no pulpit presentations, no family, no FHL groups over here. So the future is not looking too good. Help us meet a growing demand for the Holy Land. How can you help? Well, going back to our 4 objectives, prayer. We have wonderful hand crosses. We have many other different resources on our website to help you with prayer. We have monthly prayer resources on there. We have a prayer bank. We have prayers said every month in Bethlehem and in Jerusalem for those who have passed away. We have a memorial for people who leave money in their wills. We are doing a lot in relation to praying for people over here and over there. I think there's a lot we can all do in increasing awareness of the situation over there. Your own awareness, parishioners' awareness, the community, friends and family, and anything you can do to become advocates of the Friends of the Holy Land and our work, we will be very, very pleased to hear from you. Practical support, giving, whether it's standing orders, whether it's donations. Our Christmas appeal will be going live in the next week on the website. So please have a look at it. I think you'll find it quite moving in terms of the story that it tells. But of course, really, pilgrimage is so important. Considering it for those of you who haven't been, encouraging others. Because what pilgrimage does, it brings you back the awareness of what is the situation over there. Until you have been over there, one doesn't really understand. And if you've had the opportunity to meet the living stones over there, and to actually engage with the Christian community after masses, with coffee, go into their homes, have dinner, meals with the local Christians, visit some of the places that are supported maybe by the Friends of the Holy Land or others, and then you really don't get a feeling of what it's really like to be a Christian over there. I'm going to mention one thing, if I may, because I think it will appeal to all of you. Last Lent, we had a wonderful opportunity from a Catholic parish priest in West London, Father Richard Nesbitt, who approached us because he, during lockdown, had become a poet. And he had, in the quiet of the church, had written poems for all of the main events and people in Lent. And he asked us whether we could provide some reflections from people in the Holy Land. And we did that and produced a Lent book, which was used as a prayer resource in a number of dioceses and parishes. And I'm taking delivery tomorrow or Wednesday of our Christmas Voices from the Holy Land, which is a similar publication where we have pulled together reflections from Christians, lay, and clergy in the Holy Land, and we've taken the Christmas story. Yes, Father Tom is holding up the Lent book that we've got there. The Christmas book will take us from the Annunciation in Nazareth down through the visitation to Bethlehem, to the birth, then on to Jerusalem, to the temple, and then out to Gaza to the flight into Egypt. So I think it's available as a hardback. It's a softback book, but in hard copy for $9.99, including postage and packing. And there's a digital copy. If you go to the website now, you look on the shop, it's all there, and you can buy it or you can phone the office. But it's a wonderful personal prayer resource, but also is being used already. The Birmingham Archdiocese are using it as their prayer group during Advent, or actually it makes a wonderful Christmas present for somebody maybe who's been isolated for the last 21 months, somebody you know well, you just want to give them something a little bit special. So we produce newsletters every 6 months with features inside. That's just the last one. The next one will be coming out in January, and you can easily register on the website or ring the office and they'll send you a hard copy. Really, I just wanted to finish off thanking you and thanking you very much indeed for being part of this journey since the 6th of September. I've so enjoyed it. It's been so illuminating, and I've learned so much because despite having been there 25 times, I haven't had the opportunity to go to many places that you went to, because my focus has been very much on the work of the Friends of the Holy Land and our work over there. So you've got our contact details up there. Father Tom has kindly agreed, once we've got the Christmas appeal, for me just to prepare a little email for him to send out to you and the rest of the database with a bit more information. But I just leave you with the thought that we are holding a carol service in London, Our Lady of Victories, on the 7th of December at 6:30. We will be having over one of our committee from Bethlehem, Leila Vesfura, who will be speaking at that event. It is being led by Monsignor Jim Curry, the parish priest at Our Lady of Victories, but also by the Anglican Bishop of Southwark, Bishop Christopher Chesson, and it's all going to be live streamed just through their normal website at Our Lady of Victories. So no costs, just a lovely carol service at Christmas, and I hope you can join us. But if you felt it was appropriate, Father Tom, for anyone to ask questions or to stay on the line after it's been officially finished this evening, I'd be very happy to answer any questions that you would like. But hopefully that's just given you, in a bit of a quick run through, some background to the Friends of the Holy Land. I suspect some of you may be supporting us anyway, so thank you to those who are, and I look forward to engaging with as many of you as possible over the next few months. God bless you all.